Today, we're serving up shakshuka and speaking about the kitchen as a safe space with Chef Mac Elliot Jarvis on Cooking with Pride. The kitchen has always been a place for people to come together and share their stories. I've invited a few of my favorite food friends from the LGBTQIA community to share their stories about cooking, connecting in the kitchen, and creating recipes that inspire others. This is Cooking with Pride.
So pick up your cilantro.
Okay.
The best way to pick it, I've found, is you grab just the individual leaves where they're coming off on the stem. Having a little bit of stem in this is actually great because it adds an extra flavor. All the flavor, in my opinion, is actually in the stem as opposed to in the leaf.
Mm-hmm. What are we making with this cilantro today?
So we're making one of my favorite dishes. It's called shakshuka. It's a spicy stewed tomato dish with eggs in it. It's usually eaten for breakfast, but I eat it all day long.
Yeah, I feel like eggs are kind of like an
all-day thing. Yeah.
Why is this like one of your favorite things to make?
It was actually the first time that I made something that I went off based off a recipe and made it my own. Like I just kind of got the guidelines, and was the first time I felt really comfortable making a dish that I didn't have to do a step-by-step of something else. Like I've done Italian food before, I've done French food where I was like very meticulous about following the recipe, whereas this is kind of the first time that I was like, all right, I can figure this out on my own. It was the first time I felt kind of confident in my cooking skills, especially after, I did this 3 or 4 years ago. So I was 28. I've been cooking for over 10 years at that point. And it was astonishing to me that I was like, it took me that long to feel comfortable doing this. So.
Yeah, to like veer off of a recipe. I feel like so many people feel that.
You get this big faux pas of like, you have to follow everything to a T. Yeah. I just don't think that that's absolutely necessary. That's where, you lose your creativity in a dish. You lose the personality of what you're doing.
I love that you just knew that you were on this creative path and you were like, there is no other option for me. Because I feel like it's so easy to talk ourselves into some other path that seems like more stable or like responsible or whatever the words are that people like to throw out when you say that you want to do something creative. Like for some reason, creativity always comes with like instability and like you don't know what you want and like you can't make up your mind and you're not going to have like a stable life.
Yeah, I'm not good with schoolwork. I'm better at learning on the job. And so for me, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was gonna have to do something where I was creating something every single day. And I don't care about the instability of like where my next job's gonna be or what I'm doing. In the moment while I'm doing what I'm doing, I love it. And there's like this calm that happens when I'm cooking that I don't think about anything or worry about anything. This is what I'm supposed to do. I have a task and let's get it done.
Oh, I love that. You're a real artist. I love that. I love that.
If you don't have a nice blender, what I suggest is just chopping it real quick, just to make it easier so that the blade can catch it and then it'll puree. And then we're gonna throw these tomatoes in here. I like fire roasted tomatoes. They have a little bit more spice and a little bit more flavor to them, but you can use just canned tomatoes if you don't wanna use something that's that strong of a flavor. Just turn this on low.
It almost kind of looks like a salsa or something.
Yeah, very similar. Like I was actually working on a Mexican place for a minute back in Mystic. Mexican food's probably next thing I'm going to do because it's incredible. Like how fresh the ingredients are and how it's complicated but very easy at the same time. Like this is how most of the sauces are made. You just throw in the blender and it's delicious.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start sauteing now. I added the onions and the garlic and then Fresno chili. Fresno chilies are my favorite. They're spicy. But they don't have the same like classic flavor that jalapeno does. It's very easy to pick out in something, so I try to avoid it. So today we're using pickled jalapenos. It kind of takes a little bit of the flavor out, and then you just get the heat from the jalapeno, and then a bell pepper. Once you get things kind of like get heated up and everything like that, I turn it down to medium and just kind of let it toast there.
I was just thinking about how like you started this like professional cooking career like around when you were 20. What were your 20s like for you? Because I just turned 30 and I've just been really reflective on my 20s and I'm just like, oh my God, so much happened in my 20s. I came out in my 20s. Like, what were your 20s like for you?
20s were fun, honestly. 20s were a little too fun. But I came out to my parents when I was 20. I had started actually dating women when I was like 18. I knew I was trans when I was 13, but I was kind of like, this isn't the right time to do this. Like I'm gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna make sure this is absolutely what I wanna be doing and what I'm absolutely certain of before I make this decision. So I just kind of made the choice to like put it on the back burner for now. my cooking career was a little bit more important, and kind of getting myself comfortable in my skin was a little bit more important than doing this right now. Mm-hmm. And a big one, actually the biggest turning point was actually in 2016 when Donald Trump got elected. And I was like, okay, now I have to, because like if I'm gonna wait, I might not have the chance. So I started transitioning. In my first round, I had a really bad reaction to it. It just, in general, like my headspace wasn't good. And so I started going to therapy and seeing somebody. I stopped taking tea for about 4 months. And then once I moved to Wyoming, I didn't know anybody. So I was like, these people don't know me. So this is the perfect opportunity to kind of start this process again. So I started transitioning, and I'm so thankful for it. It's been almost 2 years. My birthday's in November, both birthdays, both my regular birthday and my trans birthday. So I'm so thankful that I actually pulled the trigger, because I now look back and I'm like, I don't know why I waited so long, you know? So.
Yeah, I feel like we all have those moments, though, where we know something about ourselves, but we're really still building that confidence within ourselves. And I feel like so often, like the work that we're doing, especially when it's creative work, is such a great place to find that confidence, to be able to like share that part of yourself.
Absolutely.
What has the transitioning process been like for you? How did your family respond to it, people around you?
The best thing is I don't think about it that often anymore. It's not something that really, I'm not aware of it as much as I was when I first started, because when you first start, it takes a long time before you start to actually pass. I'm just now at the point where I can pass, and people wouldn't really think twice about if I tell them.
What's passing for people who may not know?
Passing is like where you look like you were born male or female, whichever way you're going. I was always masculine seeming. I always dressed masculine and always kind of wore my hair masculine. But it was very obvious once I started transitioning that there was a very big difference between what I looked like when I started and now what I look like. I've been cooking for, coming up on 15 years, and I love cooking, but that has always been my placeholder. That has always been my comfort zone. That's always been something that I don't have to think about my life when I'm cooking. So it's been hard to kind of refocus what is important to me. And this has been a huge shift of you have to find self-love, and you have to find your confidence, and you can't just use the fact that you're a chef and just be a blank slate to people.
Yeah, it's so interesting how we have these things that really serve us and help us through these difficult moments and help us to find who we are. And then we realize oh, maybe I'm using this thing that I love in a way that I don't really need to be holding on to. I don't need to be holding on to it in this exact way anymore.
Yeah, there's so many things, especially in the queer community, that I find that we abuse to cover up the fact that we are dealing with something instead of just dealing with it. So it's cooking was mine. Cooking and drinking beer, because I love beer. But it was a problem. I noticed it in my, when I was 26, 27, right before I made the choice. I was not taking care of myself. I was not being taking care of my mental health or any of that. And so this has been a huge, this actually saved my life. I probably wouldn't be okay or doing any of the things I'm doing now if I hadn't made that choice to actually choose myself over what society wanted me to be. Now we're kind of at a point where you can see the vegetables are kind of that melty that I like. They're caramelized. They've actually gone down significantly. So at this point, I would add the tomato base.
It really is pretty simple to make too.
So you want to bring it up to a simmer and turn it down to super low. It's already at kind of a pretty thick pasta sauce consistency, so you want to get it down just a little bit more. So you want the eggs kind of almost be the binder for the sauce, and so it's so it'll hold when you pull out one of those eggs, and you got the sauce sitting on there when you're eating with the pita. So as you can see, the consistency on this it's thickened up a lot. This is actually the perfect consistency for me, and at this point we're gonna add salt. I don't go heavy on the black pepper just because we're adding so many other things, and there's a lot of pepper already in here. And then adding the smoked paprika, the oregano, and the cumin, and then just stir that around.
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is gonna be a flavor explosion.
Since we're ready to drop the eggs, you're gonna take your spatula and just make a little hole.
I'm sensing this is where the eggs are going.
This is where the eggs go.
Okay.
A lot of people say to crack it on a flat surface. I do it on the edge just so I have a little bit more precise crack, and then just go straight in. If you get a little shell in there, it's fine. can pick it out. It's for your friends anyways. So.
Yeah, they'll still love you.
Hopefully. And then at this point, we're gonna cover it and let it sit. You'll kind of notice that the whites will start to get a little bit more opaque. And then once you can actually like shake the pan and you'll see the yolks kind of slightly move, and that's about when you want to be done. So you just pull the lid off and let it sit, and then at that point they'll be perfect. Last night, I broke into the kitchen and made all of the pita bread ahead of time.
I'm okay with somebody breaking in if they're just gonna make some bread.
We got these perfect little pita balls. You're gonna take a little bit of flour and just dust your rolling surface. You don't want a lot of flour because if you add too much, it's gonna change how the dough actually rises. So just take your dough ball. I like to pull it up from underneath so you don't get too many fingerprints on it.
Okay.
And then you don't lose too much air. Take a little bit more flour and just dust the top and then push down. And all you're doing is just rolling it out.
And you turn it as you roll it, okay.
Just a quarter turn. And let the rolling pin do the work. You don't need to push too hard on this. It's heavy enough that it'll get it to the thickness and width that you want.
What has it been like for you being a trans chef and working in different restaurants?
Growing up in Seattle, I worked with a lot of people who are pretty accepting of the LGBTQ and queer community. I actually came out as trans in a city that I never thought I would be. I came out in Las Vegas. And everybody was very accepting of it, but it was definitely one of those, it's a hard thing to get started changing people's mentality of who you are, like get them to change their pronouns for you.
Yeah.
And especially like when you first start out transitioning, it's not immediate. It takes a while. It took me 2 years. I'm coming up on my second, but it took me probably about a year and a half to start to be passable. And I had to start not telling jobs right away. So they at least could meet me as he, meet me as the pronouns that I preferred, and then go from there. Deciding too, like it's also place to place. You know, this current job I have, I don't feel overly comfortable talking about it, not because anyone wouldn't be accepting, it's just easier to not have the conversation. And I know that sounds really, backwards to what I'm trying to do. The best part of what I'm doing in kitchens and what I'm bringing is like, for all those people who don't ever get to meet a trans person or don't ever get to work with someone who's trans, I can educate them. But this is definitely like one of those situations where I just choose to kind of keep it to myself, and you have to read that kitchen to kitchen.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'm the first person to, shout it from the rooftops and let everybody know, because it is a teaching moment. Some people never get to meet a trans person in their life, and I can be the face of that. I'm a charming enough, bubbly enough person that if I'm the face of what the trans community looks like to that person, it's only helping our cause here. It's only helping bring acceptance more,
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I'm having a tough time with this current job of not mentioning it. And it's just really a feeling like most queer people can kind of understand. A lot of trans people can understand, like, you sometimes have to keep it to yourself to protect yourself.
I feel like so many people in the queer community have had that experience. It is a weird position to be in.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so easy to get in your head about it too.
Yeah. When I first came out as being gay, I don't know how many conversations I had with men of, are you sure? Is that really what you want to be doing? Like, and that's not a fun conversation to have with anybody. Like, I don't need you to tell me if I'm sure or not. I know I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now with being trans, like there's this stigma that we're crazy and we don't know like who we are, what we're doing, and we're just, this is a phase and we'll get over it. And it's not a phase.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of us out there that prove that this is real. Like you need to respect us and respect our choices. So we're just gonna throw these guys in the oven at 475 and just set them on the pizza stone. And you'll wait about a minute or two, and then we'll flip them over and they'll start to puff.
Now that you are a professional chef, how do you feed your creativity outside of cooking?
Oh, that's a very good question. I like to make a point of trying to do something once a week at home where I'm cooking or I'm doing something that's a little different from what I do for a living. But it's really important to do something for myself outside of my work. I used to never do that. I used to always just focus on work. And then I kind of lost the love of why I do what I do because it became something that was then a chore. And now I kind of have to remind myself of why I like to do it. All right, they're getting all toasty.
Those look amazing.
I like to let everyone pick their eggs, so you let me know which one you want.
Okay, I'm gonna go for that one right there.
So obviously this is a messy dish, so I like to just get into it. One of my favorite quotes from a chef of mine was, specifically with sandwiches, was it's not a real sandwich unless you eat it over a trash can. So that's how I like to eat most of my meals.
Oh my God, I totally get that. I was just in France and I was like, well, you know, it's not a real croissant experience unless it's getting everywhere.
Where you get that like flake dusting of awesomeness.
Yeah, totally.
Put a small amount of the egg and shakshuka on there.
Oh my God, this is very exciting. Oh my God, this is really good.
Not too bad, huh?
What do you mean not too bad? This is really good. See, this is why artists need other people around who are really gonna encourage them because I feel like creative people like downplay their talent. But this is talent. This is delicious.
Thank you.
This is so good.
I appreciate it.
I know that representation, why is that something that's important for you as a chef?
I don't see like trans chefs out there. I don't see any representation as far as having someone to look up to and look forward to. I think I probably would have been a lot more comfortable in my life or coming out sooner if I had had the experience of someone who's like me. I don't have anybody. I don't have, you know, we have a few actors coming out and things like that, so that's great. That's great for those kids who are coming up who don't necessarily have a role model. But, you know, I would love to see more representation as far as in the kitchen and having more people have that, just somebody to look up to, someone to strive for. You know, I think a lot of times it's easier to just kind of get so focused on the fact that there's food involved or there's cooking involved that the person that's behind it isn't as recognized or getting the highlight that they deserve. You know, we all struggle in this industry. We all have things going on in our lives, but, you know, the best thing you can do is to give someone a guiding light to get out of. You know, what if you're in a conservative town and you're cooking and you're terrified to tell your coworkers what you're going through? Like the best thing that you can have is community. The best thing you can get to feel more included and feel more comfortable is having someone there to be your representation, even if it's just a chef on a TV. I would love to have someone be like, this is how you handle the situation going forward. You know, this is my story. This is how I did this.
I've noticed that often we try to separate work and the person making the work, and I feel like the person is such a huge part of why the work exists. And it's a really natural connection to be making. And I think that we should be connecting, you know, our food with the people who are making it and creating it and bringing it to our tables and to our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, you've been in a lot of kitchens yourself, and you said that you haven't met anyone else who's out and trans in a kitchen while you've been working there. And I feel like that says a lot.
It's not so much the boys' club anymore. And we need to get away from having that stigma of like, you're just a cog in the wheel. It's one of those things where it's like creating a space for people to feel like they're included and feel like they can be themselves without being judged.
You know, with this boys' club mentality, people feel like that has to be upheld. Like, say, if I were to like go into a kitchen, people might expect me, or I might even put the pressure on myself to uphold that standard that has just been there. And I feel like we're really entering a time where we are starting to see what different kinds of leadership looks like. And it doesn't have to be the boys' club.
I'm a huge believer in like, you don't discriminate in the kitchen. If someone asks for a certain name to be said or their pronouns or whatever it is, we respect that. We don't talk illy of other people. And you create a community where like, or create a mini family for the people around you. Like, I love when I hear that my staff is like going out and having dinner together, or they hang out outside of work, or they look forward to coming to work because they feel like they're heard or that they're respected. Like, I wanted that from day one when I was cooking. And I got lucky enough to be in a lot of kitchens that was like that. And I would love to see that more of that, the acceptance of people. And then being able to be recognized for who you are.
Well, I hope to see the same too.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here. This is a beautiful dish. It's
Thank you.
delicious. Oh my God, I'm gonna keep eating this. This was so much fun to be here today with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.